Welcome back to the Block Retro Repair YouTube channel. Today we're going to be doing something not so retro. I'm going to be building myself a new main PC. Now this one was my main PC. It is an i7-4790K, yes, the CPU from 2014, and an RTX 2060. It's well due for an upgrade, the 6 gig model. This thing technically still runs all the games I like to play, but I've been doing some slightly high poly 3D scans for 3D modeling arcade machine parts and stuff like that. And this thing gets slightly angry at me when I try to do that stuff. It'll do it, it's just really slow at it. Now, we're not just gonna go out and build the best PC we can. I'm not spending $3 grand on a graphics card. As you can tell by the fact I'm using an 11-year-old CPU, I like to save a few dollars. First, the case. I saved a lot of money on this by simply finding this on the side of the road. This is an old Cooler Master half 932. You might be able to consider this somewhat retro. It does have USB 3.0. It has 2 ports here, which technically is more than that one. That one only had 1 and doesn't have any USB-C, and neither does this one. I don't think we're going to be able to hook that up, so we won't have that on our new motherboard, but no FireWire for us, I guess. But ultimately, it's a fairly cool-looking case, I think. Those fans might have to be replaced with modern ones if they're too annoying, but we'll find out. They look kind of cool. I think the entire case itself looks kind of cool, and as somebody that doesn't even look at their computer and it sits under a desk, this should work just fine. Now, the reason I'm not reusing this case is because, honestly, I'll probably continue to use this PC somewhere else. For the motherboard, I ended up going with this Asus Prime B650 Plus. It was one of the cheapest AM5 modern socket motherboards that I could find, so hopefully this one should work fairly well. We'll see if it got too damaged in shipping. Thank you for that. It looks like nothing got damaged here on the motherboard, so we should be good. For the CPU, I ended up going with a Ryzen 5 7600X. Ultimately, this should be a fairly good upgrade from that i7 from 11 years ago, and I have plenty of room to upgrade in the future, and this was only $170, so a fairly good deal. Now, I could have gotten this used and saved about $20, but that feels really stupid. I'm not going to save $20 to risk a used one, so I just went ahead and got a brand new one. Pretty much everything except for the graphics card I got new because of that exact same reason. I'm gonna go ahead and release our socket here and remove our socket protector. I guess we don't need to do that. I don't know. I've never worked on an AM5 board. It's been quite a long time since I've worked on anything, well, modern. Now we're gonna go ahead and install our new Ryzen CPU, installing that corner over there, just like that. And we'll set that down and pop that off, just like that. We have our new CPU installed. Now for RAM, I ended up going with G.Skill Trident Z. This is DDR5. I went with 24 gig sticks, so we have 48 gigs of RAM here. It's a weird amount of RAM, I know, but it was a lot cheaper than going with 2 32 gig sticks, and I didn't really want to go with only 32 gigs of RAM because 3D scanning does require a lot of RAM. Ultimately, 32 would have been fine. I mean, this had 16 of DDR3, but why not? Now, unfortunately, this was the only thing I got that was RGB that I know about, and I was trying to avoid RGB because I actually dislike it, but it actually would have cost more to go with non-RGB if I wanted an actual brand name. Now, I've actually never worked with DDR5 before. I don't know if this is a common thing or just this motherboard thing, but only one side of the RAM slot opens up, which is interesting. I went to open this side and it wasn't opening. I'm like, what? And it doesn't open, so that's weird. I think it goes in this direction. This is a weird method of putting in RAM. Yes, it works. Not quite. There it goes. For an SSD, I ended up just going with a Crucial 1 terabyte drive. This, I've never had any issues with Crucial, and they're basically the cheapest M.2s that you can get, so this should be plenty. It's only a terabyte, but I have about 4 terabytes of hard drives in this computer that I'm going to be moving over to this computer, and I also have a NAS, so I really don't need terribly much storage for my main boot drive. And of course, we're using our LTT screwdriver to give us a few more FPS when we're done here. Now, because we're running a single-sided M.2, we have to install this little optional rubber pad right here as a little spacer, just like that. Pro tip, if you're not installing a second drive, still install the standoff and screw, so then when you go to upgrade and add a second drive, you don't have to go find your motherboard box. For our cooler, I went ahead and went with this Peerless Assassin, mainly because for $30, it is an absolute steal. Amazingly, this cooler actually even included thermal paste, though I'm not going to use it, just because I have other thermal paste that I trust a little bit more, but I'm sure this stuff's honestly probably just fine. Now, unfortunately, due to the where the RAM is placed, this fan really doesn't fit very well right here, so I think instead of having them, you know, both right here, I'm going to have one over here, well, both of them on like this side instead, so it pushes air that way instead of that way. I really don't think it's gonna affect anything. Now we definitely need to give our free case here a good bath, so that's what we're gonna do right now. It also is supposed to have wheels on the bottom. I see at least 3 of them in there. Hopefully the 4th one's in there, because that would be pretty nice to have. So let's give this thing a bath. I do actually have all 4 wheels for it, but I think the feet are honestly going to be more useful for what I'm going to be using this for, so we'll leave those feet on it. But the case cleaned up fairly nicely, so let's put some stuff in it. I also went ahead and moved that giant fan to the inside. It is set up for an exhaust, so it will be blowing the air up, and that side panel there is an intake, so it'll suck it in and shoot it up, which I think should work. Probably. Before I forget, we're going to go ahead and install our I/O plate. We're also going to make sure we don't have any extra standoffs that are going to short against anything on the board, but it looks like we have a standard standoff pattern, so we're good there. For a power supply, we're going to use this old Thermaltake 1200 watt power supply that I've had in a build that was laying around for a while. This is probably nearly double the wattage we actually need, but it was free, because it came out of a build I've had in storage for a while. For the graphics card, I ended up going with this Radeon RX 7600. I got this used for a little over $200, which for that price, this is pretty much the best bang for your buck that I could find, so we're going to install this. It's not the best graphics card, obviously, but it's a hell of a lot better than the 2060 that was in that. Now, this is an 8 gig version. 2060 was a 6 gig, so at least we're getting a little bit of VRAM storage increase as well, as long as just a better graphics card. There we go. Not terribly cable managed. I didn't really care, but good enough. We'll probably put some more hard drives in it. I'll swap some of the ones from my other computer into this one once we get everything set up. Let's get this thing turned on, see if it posts, and see if we can install Windows. I do really like this case. It actually looks fairly good. I might do something about this hole here. Maybe we'll install an actual DVD drive and put one of these covers down here and replace that. Because I don't like having that weird hole right there. That's somewhat annoying, but plenty of spots for DVD drives. Also design and 3D print a TPU mat to go in here, since the original rubber mat is missing. I do like this magnetic Wi-Fi antenna from this motherboard. It gives the case a nice fin. There we go, that's what we want to see. I don't have a keyboard plugged in, we'll have to do that. RGB doesn't look terrible in there. The tinted window definitely helps make it not so annoyingly bright. These massive fans are surprisingly completely silent, and they also have a switch on them to turn on blue lights, which we're going to leave those off, but okay, I did not expect those to be silent, considering how old they probably are. Went into the BIOS and adjusted our memory speed to the correct memory speed, because these are 6,000, and it auto set to 5,800 for some reason, but we are set to the correct memory speed now. We'll see if it actually posts with the correct memory speed, and I have a thumb drive in it to install Windows. I'm going with Windows because, unfortunately, some of the games I play are Windows only and do not support Linux. Otherwise, I also don't know how to use Linux, and I should probably learn it, but we're gonna stick with Windows. I just don't activate my Windows because screw Windows, I'm not giving them my money. Honestly, the blue fans are definitely not as annoying as I was expecting them to be, but I don't know, maybe we'll leave them on, maybe we'll leave them off. I will say, it kind of sucks this doesn't have a PS2 port. As somebody that uses a IBM Model M, I had to get a USB to PS2 adapter, so I guess that sucks. I forgot how long it takes to sit here and install all the drivers. There's so many drivers to install. As you can see, running around in Counter-Strike, we are stucking well over 100 FPS, which is very nice. Normally I wouldn't play a game like this on max settings for the sake of frame rate, but with this many frames, honestly, I'm good. In the actual game, we're getting around 100 FPS. It'll drop down to about 90, but it doesn't seem to go below that. So, this is extremely playable. My other computer did around medium settings at 60 to 80 FPS, so this is definitely an improvement. Another way I'll actually probably play is with the high ray tracing settings on, just with the high resolution ray trace reflections on, as this does not affect the FPS all that much, as you can tell. As you can see, this is an absolutely playable game. Well, yes, this game is fairly old, and so is Counter-Strike, or CS2, I guess, isn't all that old, but it's basically CSGO with a reskin. Counter-Strike Go used to actually be pretty playable on pretty much anything. If it had a CPU, it was pretty much playable. However, these days, CS2 honestly requires a lot more of a powerful computer than one usually might think, you're not going to be playing it on your potato. Even on lowest settings, it requires a weirdly high amount of specs for what it is. Game optimization what? GTA is pretty much the same way. They've done a bunch of graphical upgrades to the game over the past 10 years, so it definitely is not the same game it was when it released, 10 or so years ago. It definitely looks a little bit better. Now we're going to try BeamNG just because I got it. We're here on Ultra settings. We're going to turn off motion blur because that's a stupid setting, and we're going to go back into the game here. And as you can see, we are sitting at roughly 80 FPS, and this game looks absolutely fantastic. And even while crashing, the FPS is very solid. Another reason I wanted to build a new computer, and the reason I wanted a lot of RAM, is stuff like the DaVinci Resolve video editing. As you can see, it will absolutely eat up the RAM if you're willing to give it the RAM. And this is not the world's longest timeline. This is not really even all that much of a timeline. It's just a bunch of clips slapped together, and it's still using 5 gigs of RAM. And I can also fast forward, which it didn't always like to let me do on my old computer because I didn't have, I guess, enough RAM or something. This time, yeah, I can fast forward as much as I want. So this should help with, hopefully, making a slightly better videos, and possibly I'll be able to finally go to 4K, but that's yet to be determined. If you like what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe. For under $1,000, even if I had to buy a case and power supply, I'm going to say this is probably one of the best computers you can build, in my opinion. Maybe you could cut down on the RAM, though. But if you like what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.